Hello and welcome. My name is Barry Good from the London School of Business and Finance, and we're here today to talk about marketing management and specifically strategy development. And I'm joined by our panel of experts, Mr. Nick Kitchen and Mr. Peter Simcock. And I'll let the gentlemen introduce themselves to you. Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick Kitchen. I'm an executive coach and consultant. My first career was in advertising, and I was the director of an international advertising agency working with organisations to help them build brands both locally and internationally. And now I work with the leadership teams of major organisations as they wrestle with the problems of building brands across very diverse and rapidly developing territories and different countries.
Hi, I'm Peter Simcock. I'm Senior Lecturer in Marketing Management at Liverpool Business School at Liverpool John Moores University. I came from industry, working for British Telecom and a number of specialised marketing communications agencies, came into education, and I currently teach on both undergraduate and postgraduate programmes at Liverpool Business School, including our master's degree in marketing and the MBA.
Now, gentlemen, we have been looking at the Levi Strauss case study, and quite an interesting case study here where Levi's have responded to consumer behaviour in terms of pursuing cheaper alternatives, and they have decided, in their wisdom, to pursue a mass market type approach. First question to you, Peter, is do you think Levi's, by pursuing a mass market, are diluting their brand?
Not necessarily. It's a very, very difficult decision to take. It's the classic rock and a hard place because competing in as a value proposition amongst other low price value propositions, there's always that risk. It depends, of course, how it's handled tactically in terms of positioning the Levi's signature brand and how the brand is communicated via the integrated marketing communication mix.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Nick, what was your reaction when you read this case study initially?
Well, echoing Peter, there were always risks attached to such a strategy. And I was wondering, from my experience, what they had done to really protect their premium brands as they went into that market, because such steps need to be really closely considered. Because quite clearly, if you can buy the same product or pretty much the same product for a lot less cash, then increasingly that you can devalue the value of the brand. So I suppose some puzzles became apparent to me. What work had they done to really differentiate and segment their offerings?
Okay, good. Now, Peter, when a company pursues this type of strategy, there are a number of problems that can come about as a consequence of that. What do you think are the dangers of pursuing this type of strategy?
The dangers are twofold, really. The first one, of course, is that you will alienate your core market. The whole point of a brand, of quality brand, is to a certain extent it's aspirational. Okay, Levi's is middle market aspirational. We're not talking Prada here or Armani. But it has these very, very strong core brand values, what we call the brand DNA. If everybody, has access to this brand DNA, then by definition the brand is no longer aspirational. So that's the first problem. The second problem, of course, is you're competing in a bigger market, a value market, and unless the value products are differentiated from the likes of Lee Cooper and Wrangler, then they may well not be successful. So you might lose out on both fronts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, Nick, what do you think happened in the first place in order for Levi's to find themselves in this position where they're perhaps outside the mass consumer market and they're having to respond in this way? Did they get their marketing strategy wrong in the first place, do you think?
Again, I don't have enough information to comment to comment on that, but clearly they noticed that increasing amounts of product in this sector was sold at the value level. By the likes of Walmart, and it makes me wonder. They perhaps in a globalised world had a couple of places to go. One would be to stay at the same level, which was aspirational middle, with that heritage of Levi and Levi Strauss being denim and the original denim, and decide to hold on to that market and take that laterally around the world. And we know that there were phenomenal growth in the middle classes in Asia and China and elsewhere. But it's I'm suspicious as to whether it feels as though they perhaps haven't pursued such an approach, and so to some extent they were left with perhaps very little option, in order to maintain their growth and to maintain their sales. Yes, maybe they hadn't got that wrong, but I think that had they looked far enough ahead at the shifts internationally in their marketplace, then I have a question mark over that.
Yeah, okay. Peter, do you think there was something that maybe Levi's could have done to forecast the market and predict this type of thing happening, so that they could take steps to prevent them having to go down this route?
There were certainly things they could have done to forecast the market, and I don't doubt actually that they were probably doing that. They were, looking at market trends, and it would come as no surprise to them that, or it shouldn't have come as a surprise to them that access to mass markets, is going to mean that you're going to have to change your overall marketing strategy. In terms of their response. It is a marketing manager's nightmare what to do about this. How do you introduce a value proposition of the brand into the bottom end of the market without compromising, the brand values that made you so successful in the first place,
and confusing the customer into the value.
Possibly confusing the customer. And again, though, I'm not entirely convinced that will be the case. Again, it comes down to how do you handle this tactically, in terms of the the brand image, brand identity that you create for the value product, and how's that communicated through your overall marketing communications, especially advertising, but also looking at new forms of marketing communication such as social networking, viral marketing, that sort of thing. It's difficult, but it's not impossible.
Now, Nick, I want to ask you, how do you think is what do you think is the best way for Levi's to go about this? I mean, we've seen Toyota differentiate themselves into the luxury car market with the Lexus brand, and to a degree do that quite successfully. Is this something that Levi's should be doing? Are they playing a risky card by associating themselves with a cheaper product, or do you think they should keep their name completely off the product or not?
A very good question. Of course, Toyota went the other way. Toyota actually created a premium brand from what was a mass market brand, so it's interesting that they went the other way. And having worked with Toyota Lexus during the 90s, I know that they scrupulously paid attention to, and I wonder if Levi's done the same thing, to how you differentiate. The whole brand experience of Lexus was attended to. Every contact with any stakeholder or customer or buyer they paid attention to, and how would that look differently. And so another example might be from the car market, might be BMW and Mini, who went to a different price point. Still a high quality product, but a lower price point, and most people knew it was still owned by BMW, but it was a different brand. So I think perhaps, and obviously we can't know all the details, but I think it could well have suited them to sort of differentiate further the value brand, and I think that they perhaps it would suit them to really pay attention to their premium brand in the way they used to. Many of us remember some wonderful broadcast advertising that went to the very core of the values and the aspirational, mid-range but still aspirational sense of the brand. And I think that perhaps they need to remind themselves of their own DNA around that and the lengths, the skillful lengths they went to differentiate their premium brand.
Okay. Now we're seeing the increasing buying power of companies like Tesco's and Walmart and the big retail outlets where people are not only just buying fruit and veg and their groceries, they're buying clothing. What can companies like Levi's do to protect their position in response to the huge purchasing power that these companies have?
They want to have the Tesco's and the Walmarts knocking on their door and saying, we need Levi. And in the heyday of Levi, they will have done. So, and the way to do that is, as we mentioned earlier, to start to reinvest in that wonderful heritage and the imagery and the DNA associated with the likes of Levi 501s and Twist and others. And then to create that pull from the consumer that can support the likes of Tesco's, stocking their products.
Okay. Now, in terms of the solutions that we offered as potentials to our viewers, there are the three options in terms of what Levi's could do in terms of strategy going forward. Which of the three do you think is most appropriate for them? So, solution A being pursue mostly or continue to pursue a value brand as solution A. Solution B, invest mostly in premium brands. Or solution C, a more segmented market approach depending on regions and product preferences.
Okay, I think these options are being presented as either or, when in fact they're not. You can actually look at a synthesis of all three options to give you an overall strategy. Firstly, you have to maintain investment in the overall Levi's brand, because it's this brand heritage from which everything else springs. Secondly, maintain the value brand. Well, yeah, okay. But let's look at this in terms of segmentation. I think it's interesting that the value brand is on sale in North America and parts of Asia. It's not on sale in the United Kingdom or Europe, or indeed Australia. So what's the rationale behind this? And again, it goes back to what Nick said, that should they be concentrating the marketing effort of the value brand in selected parts of Asia? So any risk of it contaminating the overall prestige image of Levi's is removed. So we can't look at one strategy that reduces actually our strategic options rather than generating useful solutions.
Good. Nick, any closing thoughts, comments from you?
Echo everything that Peter said. I think if marketing funds were scarce, if you had to sort of decide, I have to sort of pick one or the other, I would pay attention to the phenomenal rise in the middle class across the developing markets, and I would hold on to as much as possible more of their classic premium positioning. That's because we know they are avid buyers of premium and middle premium products. I think it's a great and avid buyers across the world of developed world classic brands, and I think Levi has a tremendous opportunity there. And I don't fully understand why they'd be selling a value brand in Asia at the moment in that way, and I don't know where they are on the premium brand front or their classic brands. So, were there to be scarce resources, I would tend to lean towards really ramping up their heritage as the globalisation of markets and the growth in the middle class expands exponentially.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much for that. So, in summary, I think with scarce resources, it appears that option B might be the most viable strategy to pursue. But what we've gathered today is that strategy is quite complex. There are many factors that come into play, and things can't just be considered in isolation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.